Okay. Ta-da. If someone were to ask you to name a female scientist, could you? If you can, did you name someone like Marie Curie, Jane Goodall, or even Sally Ride? These are the names of some of the most well-known and recognized women in STEM. However, there are many more who don't have the same recognition. In the past, women in the male-dominated fields of STEM have always been lesser known, if they were even known at all. While science and technology fields are growing every day, there need more people to take on these jobs and go into this field, and a lot of women are stepping up to that challenge. As a STEM major, I have knowledge of women in STEM and feel that it is important for everyone to know who they are and what they've accomplished. Today I want to talk to you about Rosalind Franklin, a scientist from the 1940s and 50s. I want to show you who Rosalind Franklin was, what her life's work was, and why it's important to us to this day. To begin, let us discover who Rosalind Franklin was. Rosalind Franklin was born in 1920 in England to a well-off Jewish family. She attended St. Paul's School for Girls, which was a college prep school in England at that time, and after high school, she began to study at a Cambridge University science. From the age of 16, she knew she wanted to be a scientist, and that is reflected all throughout her life. In 1945, she received her PhD for her work in coal and its physical sciences and effectiveness and efficiency in burning it. Next, we can look at what she researched and why it was important and what she accomplished as a scientist. To begin, there were two main things that Rosalind studied, and they were DNA and viruses. To start with DNA, which is arguably what Rosalind is most known for, especially her research with X-ray diffraction. X-ray diffraction was a tool used to take pictures of research that people were doing with science. And she was very meticulous about it, almost to a point of perfectionism. She would make sure that everything was calibrated perfectly and that her pictures were as clear as they could possibly be. This allowed her to capture the famous Photograph 51. Photograph 51 was the clearest and best picture that displayed DNA's double helix form for the first time ever, basically. And this research and photograph that she took was the missing piece to research that was also being done at the same facility by James Watson and Francis Crick. These two men found her research and photograph and realized that was the missing piece to the research they were doing. So combining that photograph and what they already knew, they were able to publish a research paper where they credited Rosalind as an assistant in the lab they worked at. This wasn't true, however. She was very accomplished in science, and she was leading her own research team at the time. But as a woman at that period in time and with her background, she didn't cause a scene when she found out that they took her research without her knowledge and published it. She decided to leave that facility in 1953 and go back to England to research viruses in plants, specifically the tobacco mosaic virus. This virus was attacking plants all over the world. She discovered where the RNA was located in this virus by using the X-ray diffraction that she was already very well known for. By figuring out this structure, it allowed her to show her research to other scientists all over the world, especially in the United States. With this knowledge of how DNA looks and RNA and all these structures, others were able to dive deeper into molecular biology and eventually break the genetic code, which is how we can do a lot of the research we can do today. After working with plant viruses until 1957, she switched gears to study the virus that causes polio, which seems like a big jump to go from plants to human viruses, but the polio virus was actually structurally similar to the yellow turnip mosaic virus that she had already done research in previously. Polio, which back in that day was a very dangerous disease that could affect almost everyone, is now almost completely gone with a lot of the research that we've been able to do about it. So what was the lasting impact of Rosalind's research on both her and our world today? Well, for Rosalind Franklin, the research was a little detrimental. Her work with X-ray diffraction, while it was incredibly important, it did have adverse effects on her itself. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 1956, and for 2 years, she battled this disease, getting various treatments and going through various periods of remission. She continued to work after her diagnosis and continued to research up until she died 2 years later at the age of 37. A lot of her work was beneficial to the continued research in different fields. Many who know Rosalind Franklin know she was an amazing scientist and an expert in all of her fields, and she was very skilled with what she did, especially with the X-ray diffraction. Many believe her work on viruses would have gone on to achieve many awards had she lived to complete it. Her work with X-ray diffraction paved the way for modern X-ray technology, as well as her research showing the similarities between the polio virus and that plant virus helped modern-day scientists understand cross-species transfer, which is how they understood how we got the swine flu and the bird flu from various species other than humans. So today we learned who Rosalind Franklin was, what she accomplished, and how it affected her and the rest of us in the world today. She's part of an amazing group of women in STEM who inspire girls even today to go into these fields and accomplish great things and be behind the next great discovery, right alongside all of the men in these fields. I hope today you learned a lot more about this phenomenal scientist, and I encourage you to dig deeper into other women in different fields. And maybe the next time someone asks you that question, do you know any women in STEM, you can have an answer that may surprise them. Maybe it's someone they don't know. And you can share more of that knowledge of these amazing women as yourself.